Hey, what is up guys? This is Nishi from MST.TV here, back with another Market Watch episode. Today we're taking a look at some more cards that are trending on the market because of some meta developments, both things that have already happened as well as some changes that we're expecting to see in the near future. In a format as diverse as this one, it shouldn't be a surprise at all to see so many different cards trending on the market, and we should definitely expect to see more and more things happening as we get closer to the 250th YCS. Let's get started. The first card we're looking at for today is Avalon Dress. This one feels like a bit of a weird one, but it's actually just a continuation of the many plant buyouts that we've seen the last few weeks of cards such as Aromaseraphy Jasmine. Dress is actually one of the most important cards in the Rika Avalon deck, as a link one that gets an additional effect if you use the Sunseed Vanilla to make it. This is basically what allows the entire deck to function, and every Rika Avalon build that I've ever seen actually runs 3 copies of this card in the extra. It shouldn't be a surprise then that with only a single printing, this card is up at $9 each as one of the most important pieces of the extra deck. Now, back when Rika Avalon first topped out of nowhere, we did see this card spike up in price back then as well, but it has fallen back down recently to only being $3 to $4 for a little while. However, with the recent surge in popularity that Rika Avalon has seen, due to the reprint of Glamour and Teardrop in Maze of Memories, everyone seems to want to pick up copies of Dress now in order to complete their cores. The entire Avalon archetype debuted in the TCG here in Ghost from the Past, and none of the cards have actually been reprinted, so at some point in some upcoming reprint set, we should see a bunch of the different Avalon cards finally get reprinted. Until then though, Dress remains one of the few remaining expensive pieces that you'll have to pick up 3 copies of if you want to play the deck. Up next is number 60, Dugaris the Timeless. Dugaris is a generic rank 4 Xyz monster where you can detach 2 materials from it to select and activate one of the following effects. You can draw 2 and then discard 1 and skip your next draw phase, special summon a monster from your graveyard in defense position but skip your next main phase 1, or double one of your monster's attack points but then skip your next battle phase. So with each of these options, you are sacrificing something for your next turn for an effect now, which can be really useful in certain situations. One of my friends was using this card as an extender in a certain deck, but just randomly decided to pump up one of his monsters to attack for game out of nowhere. Well, now this card is being used in Naturia Runic as a way to draw 2 cards and then discard 1. The idea is that you have to have runic spells in your hand in order to interact with your opponent, and when you have runic fountain access, you don't mind skipping your next draw phase, since you should be able to draw 2 to 3 cards off of Fountain's effect to replenish your hand every single turn. Number 60 used to be a pretty pricey card. It first came out in a Battles of Legends set, I think Relentless Revenge, and it was about a year ago that this card was like $15 to $20. The card got a reprint though in Ghost from the Past 2, which temporarily cooled off the price completely, and you could grab a copy for like $1 or so. Now though, because of its play in Runic Naturia, and because of how useful the card can be for certain combo decks, either copy of number 60 is going to cost you $4 to $5. Not the craziest price point, but still worth noting when the card was only $1 before. If you can still grab them for cheap, this is definitely a card that I would try to grab, or at least keep an eye on moving forward, because assuming that it doesn't get another reprint, it has a lot of potential to get even higher in price moving forward. Next, we're going to look at a couple of different kaiju monsters, with the first one being Gameciel. So Gameciel is the kaiju that will always be among the first to get attention when kaijus are good in any given format. As I'm sure you guys are aware of, kaijus are being looked at for the same reason that Sphere Mode and Lava Golem are seeing so much play. They allow you to tribute off your opponent's Shangri-Ira and or Arise Heart to allow you to play the game, and they're just useful board breakers in general that are really hard to answer. Actually, kaijus have gotten even more attention recently as a lot of Kashtira players are opting to end on an end board with Arise Heart and then 4 back row, rather than going for a full 5-zone lock in order to better play around Lava Golem, Sphere Mode, and Nibiru. Now, Gameciel is cool because at 2200 attack points, it's the smallest one to attack over on your opponent's side of the field. Also worth noting though, is that as a Water Aqua monster, if you or your opponent has up Rivalry of Warlords or goes in match, it now becomes really difficult for your opponent to get a monster onto the field. Fortunately, Gameciel has a ton of different printings, but unfortunately all of them are up in price all across the board. For the secret rares from Battles of Legend, those are the highest rarity, sitting at a ridiculous $24 per copy. Aside from that, the Super looks like it's mostly disappeared from the market. Currently, at the time I'm filming this, the cheapest one on TCG Player is $17, but I don't think they've sold for more than about $10, so maybe it's just that people have pulled their listings. Now, other than that, the Dual Devastator Ultras and then the original and Mega Tin rares are quite cheap at around $5 to $6, though that is still a lot for the cheapest printing of such a staple card. Expect kaijus to remain expensive as long as Kashtira is in the format, so you might be best off grabbing some cheap copies for now until they get another reprint. Next up, the other kaiju monster that we're going to take a look at is Duggarin, the Mad Flame Kaiju. Now, functionally, all of the kaijus we kind of treat the same way, right? We just use them to tribute one of your opponent's monsters off of the field in exchange for giving them a pretty decent sized body. Now, Duggarin is a pretty big one at 3,000 attack points, but despite this, I'm actually expecting this card to move up in price in the near future. First of all, as a dinosaur monster, this card might be useful with the dino support coming in Wild Survivors. Secondly, Duggarin is actually used as a small world bridge piece in the upcoming Vanquish Soul deck. It just happens to be a fire monster, so you can banish it to search for several different pieces out of the deck, and even if you do happen to draw it, it's either a useful form of removal for an opponent's monster, or you can reveal the fire monster in your hand to enable certain Vanquish Soul effects. Overall, I think it's a pretty interesting tech that will be worth considering for when the deck comes out, especially assuming that Kashtira is still around, but even if not, I think a lot of decks will appreciate being able to main deck some kaijus as not only spot removal, but also a potential combo or bridge piece. For now, Duggarin is still extremely cheap. It just got a speed dual box printing, so the secret rares from there are around $3 to $4, and then it also has an OTS super rare printing, which is about $2 to $3. Fortunately though, it got a common speed dual printing as well, so grabbing a copy of the card just for yourself to use should be really cheap. If you guys can though, I would keep an eye out for some of those holo printings and such at your locals, just in case the card catches more and more people's eyes over the next couple of months. Moving on, the next card is Unchained Abomination. This card is of course a boss monster for the Unchained archetype, which is getting several new support cards in the upcoming core set, Duelist Nexus. This card is really cool in that it potentially allows you to pop multiple cards in the same turn. So one during each end phase, and then potentially another 2 cards if another card is either destroyed by battle or card effect. Pretty useful card. While this card is really strong in Unchained, it's also something that you can make with Nightmare Unicorn and any other monster. It's particularly useful since it's a fiend monster, so you can still make it under Rivalry of Warlords. This card was actually pretty cheap before. For the most part, it's only been a $3 to $5 card, especially since it got that Megatin secret rare printing in addition to its original ultra rare printing, and the card hasn't really seen a ton of play in its lifetime. However, as we've seen multiple times, a lot of cards that have just those 2 printings can get quite expensive after a year or two, especially extra deck options, and especially when the rest of the archetype is actually relatively affordable and easy to put together, as is the case with the Unchained. I don't really think it's worth it to go out and invest in a ton of copies of these now, but if you are interested in playing Unchained in a few months, maybe it isn't a horrible idea to go out and try to pick up a few copies for like $5 to $6 while the card is still relatively affordable and under the radar. Next, this one is really unexpected and out of nowhere, but Shooting Majestic Star Dragon is a card that is currently on the rise. It is a level 11 synchro monster that requires Majestic Dragon as the tuner, as well as for the non-tuners to include a dragon synchro monster. So this card is pretty cool if you can get it out onto the field. It can negate the effect of an opponent's monster, it can banish itself for a turn to negate a card or effect, and it can attack multiple times if you have Stardust Dragon monsters in your graveyard. Now, I don't know exactly how it is that this card is going to be used, since the requirements to bring it out seem really annoying to meet. However, I would assume that it's related to the release of Excel Synchro Stardust Dragon in Maze of Memories, as well as the upcoming release of Assault Synchron. Maybe it's the case that they'll be able to make this card really easily, I'm not too sure. I'm not very familiar with how these Synchron cards work or what the combos that they're trying to pull off look like. The card is worth noting though, because although Dawn of Majesty fell within the reprint range of last year's Megatins, this card wasn't included. Because of this, the secrets have gone from being $2 or $3 to now being a solid $7, though the card has gone as high as $10 over the last couple of months. The Starlights I generally try not to pay too much attention to here, since they fluctuate so much with only 1 or 2 actual sales, but those have gone up noticeably from being around $100 to over $200 now, with actually several copies being sold on TCG Player. I don't think that this card is really going to see too much play, but at the very least, if you guys open Dawn of Majesty while you were chasing after Alubers or branded openings, see if you have any of these lying around, because they used to be dirt cheap and now they are worth a few dollars. And finally, there's one last card I want to mention. It is the Bond between teacher and student. Now, this card is purely a Dark Magician support card, where if you control a Dark Magician, you get to special summon a Dark Magician girl from your deck, and then also set one of those Dark Magician attacking spells from your deck directly to your back row. Now, kind of a random one, since Dark Magicians haven't gotten any new support coming out recently, and they definitely aren't meta relevant. However, this is something I want to make sure that you guys are aware of. Apparently, this card has been around $10 for a while. I remember before, this card used to only be a few dollars, but now out of nowhere, this card is all the way up at $15 per copy. Its one printing came out back in Dual Power, which was way back in 2019, so it's been almost a full 4 years since the set came out. But really, this speaks to the power that a lot of collectible cards can have on the market, or at least support for those archetypes that casual players really want to try and put together. I was caught off guard by this one, and I know I have a ton of these lying around in my bulk somewhere, so if you guys can, go ahead and dig these up so that you can offload them before they get reprinted. Alright everyone, that is all I have for today. Not too much to say about these ones, but we are right in the middle of reprint season, so it's going to be really interesting to balance out all of the upcoming reprint sets with the hype that is building for the 250th YCS and then Nationals and everything after that as well. Anyways, if you guys did enjoy today's Market Watch, please make sure that you let me know by hitting that thumbs up button for me. Also, make sure you leave a comment in the comment section down below, letting me know what you guys think about the cards we talked about today and what other cards are trending on the market. Also, if you guys haven't already, do make sure that you hit that subscribe button. And until next time, guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.